I'm hopeful that the midterms put some folks in Congress that prioritize children's well-being. And I don't care which side of the aisle they're on. That is what our country is responsible for.
If you're going to create a foundation, let's talk about how to put those dollars to work for the benefit of the community alongside tax dollars too. Let's put as much resource to work to benefit our lives all day, every day.
This is an important day, and it's a day to reflect and ask the question, how are foundations doing with those dollars that are tax subsidized? Welcome to another exciting edition of Break Fake Rules. This is our little show where we talk about the fake rules of philanthropy. And here is my good friend, our co-host extraordinaire, Jamie Allison. Thank you for making the time to join us here again. What's happening with you these days?
Well, I recently went to the book launch for Control.
What's that?
It's a new book by my friend and podcast co-host, Glen Galaich.
We've talked a lot about this book on the show, and I have to thank you. We had an episode a little while back where I understand I wasn't even there. Someone took over the show and just started talking about the book. It was pretty cool.
I tell you what, one of my favorite moments in life was taking over your show and getting to talk about you behind your back with love.
It was really great. You asked tough questions, and there were moments as I listened to you where I thought, boy, I wish I had put that into the book. That was a good one. But anyway.
I've never been to a book club meeting where I've actually read the book before. And so this was the first time for me. It was really great. It's like, oh, this is the kind of insight you can get from your fellow participants in a book club if you've actually read the book.
Everyone read it.
I don't know that I'm going to join a book club anytime soon, but I'm really glad that I finally got the experience of what it's like to have read the book when you show up to book club. It was really great. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Glenn.
And thank you. And I think you had such an impact. A week later, it came out on the bestseller list for USA Today at number 8.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, that was really amazing for all of us involved. This was a major team effort to get this book out, and just really amazing. Okay, so later on in this show, we're going to have with us a good friend to both of us, tremendous national leader, Elizabeth Cushing. How well do you know Elizabeth? What's the story there?
I am really excited that Elizabeth is going to be on the show today. I have the good fortune of being introduced to her work and being introduced to her probably about 20 years ago.
Well, we probably need to tell everybody what she does. What's the name of the organization?
She's the CEO of Playworks, a youth development organization that supports young people in developing belonging and mediation skills and conflict resolution skills on the play yard. And interestingly, one of the reasons I'm excited about having her is that, I run the Walter and Elise Haas Fund, and we take our role as being good teammates very seriously. And so from time to time, we have consultants work with us to strengthen our skills for team building, team bonding, giving and receiving feedback. And Elizabeth and her partner, Jill Violet, partnered with us to come and facilitate some trainings for our team to strengthen our team building skills, our team bonding skills. And we've had another consultant, Vicky Abadesco, also work with us on giving and receiving feedback and mediating conflict. And the thing that's interesting about this is that the consultants who work with us best are those who work with young people on anti-bullying, not necessarily organizational development consultants. Like we tend to rely on youth development consultants to come and help us strengthen our team. And so I'm really excited to get to talk to Elizabeth today.
That is really interesting. You know what else is coming up? It's right here as this episode comes out is our good friend Tax Day. Are you looking forward to that?
Here's a little known fact about me. I love Tax Day.
Wow.
I love preparing to prepare my taxes. I love preparing my taxes. I love the moment when my taxes are complete and I get to press send. I've done my taxes for many, many years, and so I used to love the moment of going to the FedEx Kinko and making the copies and getting the manila envelope and addressing it and sending it off. Yeah, it's part of my civic duty. I recognize that my taxes, along with that of my fellow residents and business owners, it's part of what makes the country great. So I'm happy to do my part, and I'm also just a nerdy kid who's really enjoyed doing my taxes over the years.
There's somebody that just said, "What's a manila envelope?" just now. Someone just did that.
Yeah, someone said that. Send me an email. We can talk about it.
Whatever you do, don't put it in the mail. Yeah, you definitely broke a fake rule there. I think there's a fake rule that we're all supposed to hate taxes, right?
No, taxes are my roads. They're my clean water. They're my schools. They're the street lights. I mean, it's all of our infrastructure. It's this internet that we're using right now to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's all true.
It's like the Matrix. Our taxes at work, it's all around us.
Wow. Gotta think about that for 10 minutes.
And if you know where to look, you can see it. Yeah, it's the Matrix.
It's all around you. And with that in mind, there is a constituency in the country that has found a way to reduce their tax burden significantly, and you and I benefit from that because we work at a foundation. And when I first started working on control, I worked with this incredibly talented developmental editor. Her name is Heidi Taboni, and it's been fun with all the book launches. She's come to many of them, and people have gotten to see the machine behind control. She's been at a lot of the events. But when we first started working together, I said to her, you know, what a lot of people don't know is that it's rare that someone starts a private foundation for charitable reasons. A lot of people, and she's, wait, what? What did you just say? And I said, yeah, it's if they tell you otherwise, it could be a lie because most people start them for tax reasons. And there's nothing wrong with that. Your estate planner or someone will come to you and say, if you want to redo, I guess I would argue there is something wrong with that, but that's side comment. But the main thing is a lot of the way very wealthy people can work the tax burden down is by using a number of different vehicles. Foundations are one of those vehicles for reducing tax burden. It creates greater tax exemption, and as a result, your tax burden comes down. It can be quite significant. It can be as high as 70% of the assets in a foundation become tax exempt, and that really has a tremendous impact on what you do end up paying out to the government, to us, to the American people. So this is an important day, and it's a day to reflect and ask the question, how are foundations doing with those dollars that are tax subsidized? And, you know, we're seeing some good stuff out there, and we're continuing to see some stuff that's mired in the fake rules. What's your take?
Well, my first thought is, I wonder if we need a rebranding campaign on taxes. So just now you said, oh, it's tax day. And I said, oh, this is so exciting. I love tax day. I appreciate, for the most part, the power of my tax dollars. Like, what happens if we rebrand what it means to pay taxes, that when you look out at the world like I just did and said, oh, taxes are my roads, my schools, my hospitals, infrastructure for the internet. When I see those things, I want to invest in those things. Those things benefit me. They benefit my neighbors. They benefit the young people we're going to get to talk to Elizabeth about today. So I think we need a rebranding on taxes. That's my first thought. And then my second thought is, okay, if you're going to create a foundation, let's talk about how to put those dollars to work for the benefit of the community alongside tax dollars too. Let's put as much resource to work to benefit our lives all day, every day.
Yeah, you know, there was a time some time ago, I haven't talked about this as much, but I kind of feel like a way to measure foundation effectiveness is, did you contribute to society in a way that government can't, or in a way that made government better? Because ultimately, if a foundation cannot rise to the standard of government, then why are we having foundations? I mean, I get it why wealthy individuals want a foundation, because they can be both charitable and tax efficient if they believe that there's something wrong with taxes, which I think that's the first thing you bring up. Like, why do wealthy people run away from taxes? It's a fair question, okay? And that's for them to answer. But if you are going to do that, and the American people are going to do a very sizable handshake and say, all right, you steward these tax dollars, the American people should really ask the question, I think, in a moment like this, tax day being a great day annually to do it, let's get a big annual report from the foundation sector on how they're doing with the way they're stewarding these assets. Some things you're going to find is that those assets have been sitting in accounts that may even be invested in things that are working against the American national agenda. That wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be great for the report card. They might find that there are foundations that are giving much, much more than the federal government does to some of these causes and are really making a difference. And the organizations they support are making a difference. And there are things here that the government we've beaten the government's track record there. There's a lot of that going on too. It would be interesting to kind of bring this all together and ask, what's the report card on this money that and now let's look at that. My $2 trillion sitting in accounts, tax exempt. So how's that going? Maybe every year we should have one gigantic industry report.
I like this report card idea. The other thing I like that's inherent in what you've said is that when we really start to answer the question about whose report card stands up, are nonprofit partners. Their report cards stand up.
Right.
When you ask the question, like who's doing the work that the government can't do or won't do, it's our nonprofit partners.
Right.
They have excellent report cards.
Not only the government can't do and won't do, but corporations and other private sector actors can't do and won't do.
Right.
Most of the reasons why these nonprofits exist, and I've heard some pushback on this, so I'm ready to hear it again, but a lot of the reason why they exist is because the private sector simply can't do the things nonprofits do without losing their business model. And so, again, we'll put that report card up. That's a great way to put it. Let's put them up together. Let's see how everybody's doing. And in a way, if it's all working well, you'd want to see stronger nonprofits. You'd want to see more scale in the nonprofit sector. You want to see healthier and sustainable budgets. And I guess I'd just throw in there, you'd want to see smaller foundations as a result, because they've moved the capital to make all that happen.
And in that case, that would be a win.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that can happen in philanthropy land is that we conflate our size with success.
Nice.
And so, I'm sure you've seen this before. You introduce yourself at a conference and you do so by saying your name, your title, the name of your foundation, and how large you are by asset size.
Oh, yeah.
As if that says something about the efficacy of your work or your vision or what you care about, or as if that says something about how your approach to grant making or how you work with your nonprofit partners. And so, there could also be, a branding campaign about, related to a Size Matters campaign that is about how intentionally you're spending your resources or not, or how intentionally you're investing your resources or not.
I like it. I mean, let's make that happen. You just kind of like identified a fake rule and broke it all at the same time. I wonder what Elizabeth might say about some of these topics. Would you like to introduce her?
Oh my gosh, I would love to introduce Elizabeth. Hi, today I'm hoping to discuss one example of what federal decisions, federal funding cuts actually mean from the vantage point of a national nonprofit, and ultimately what those decisions and funding cuts mean for our kids and communities. Our guest today is Elizabeth Cushing. She has more than 30 years of nonprofit management experience with youth development and youth-serving organizations. She's the CEO of Playworks, a national nonprofit that partners with schools across the country to help kids build social skills, resolve conflict, and experience belonging through structured play and recess, and then return to class ready to learn. Elizabeth joined Playworks in 2004 when it was still just in California, and I had the pleasure of meeting Elizabeth just a couple of years after that, and I've had the pleasure of witnessing Elizabeth grow Playworks to a national scale. Elizabeth, welcome to Break Fake Rules.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. First off, I'd like you to talk to us about, you mentioned previously that federal funding for education effectively dropped 3% given inflation and other decisions, and there are going to be other cuts. What's the real magnitude of these cuts on a national level, and what does that actually look like for the schools that Playworks partners with across the country?
Yes, the magnitude is existential. It really is. So I'm speaking both from the Playworks seat, but also representing all of the nonprofits that partner with public schools, because the cuts that the federal government has made are only one part of the pressure, the financial pressure. So the first change is that all of the title dollars have been flat funded for 2 years. That means that school districts are effectively getting $2 billion less across the country than they would have if inflation were built in to the calculation. So that is a huge cut, and it hits urban areas in much larger dollar amounts than it does rural. Then you add on to that the Medicaid changes in eligibility that are coming in next January will mean that the children who formerly were bringing Medicaid dollars to school districts won't be coming in the same volume at the same level. Those funds are used for services like physical therapists, speech therapists, nurses. And without those funds, the school districts still have to provide the support for children. So there's an expense they won't have a funding source for. And then the third compounding effect is state budgets. And states are struggling right now to achieve budgets that work for their states. And there's a good chance in states across the country that there will be cuts to education in the final versions of those budgets. So school district leaders are preparing for quite a pile-on in the upcoming school year.
You've given us a sense already how this impacts children. It's obviously, there's much, much more, I assume. Can you speak to that?
Right. So the reason that schools partner with Playworks is because we make the student experience better. There's less bullying, there are less discipline issues, school is fun, and a place kids want to be. And in fact, we improve attendance at schools. So we're an excellent partner, I will say. If schools cannot afford to cover the cost of that speech therapist, they certainly cannot afford to have Playworks or other partners who they've come to rely on. And those kids are the ones who will suffer in that situation. So we're all pulling in the same direction to support the children, and now the resources available are not going to be as available as they were.
As you were talking, I found myself curious about, we talk often here and I'm currently on a book tour as well, about community engagement and some of the fake rules that have existed in the philanthropic sector, which are fading, I'm happy to say. I've been really pleased to see more and more people breaking this current fake rule, which is the donor knows best for the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we see more and more foundations that are starting, if not have for a while, leaned on community to understand the types of decisions they should make. You know, kind of bringing what is traditionally called an equity lens to a decision. We're going to talk to those most affected by our decision before we make it. Did the federal government talk to anyone about these decisions before they made them?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I will say that Playworks is right now talking to every one of our school partners to find out, what is it like for you? What do you need most? What are your resources looking like? How can we be part of the solution? We do that because it's good business. We also are talking to other partner organizations, other nonprofits that work on behalf of children, and we're saying, how can we help you? What is your biggest challenge? Because it has been our experience that collaborative work is more powerful and more sustainable over time. That's certainly not what the federal government has done. And the realities are that they are tying the hands of states to behave that way too. So the ripple effect is far and wide.
Elizabeth, when you hear this narrative that the current cuts and investigations are about weeding out fraud and scams and abuse in the nonprofit community, how does that land for you?
It's patronizing. We are not those people. Sure, every sector has some bad apples. I'm sure that's true. We are a sector that uses every resource we have, every asset we have in terms of knowledge, to seek social change for people who need support. So I reject it out of hand.
I know how you really struggle with every decision around where you spend money, where you put your budget. It's very challenging and obviously far, far, far from corruption, which I do think the White House knows about corruption. I have a feeling they do. They just keep looking in the wrong place. It's funny what's in the building. But what I'm kind of curious about is philanthropy's response in this time. And, just like you're saying, this is a challenging time for foundations too. We already come into every episode of this show talking about all the various tensions that exist for foundations around traditions and rules that we all follow, and we want to see people break them. So how are you seeing philanthropy show up right now? And what more would you like to see? Because I'm assuming you don't want less.
Correct. The response has been uneven. I've witnessed foundation folks who are not funders of Playworks meeting me at a conference or an event and asking, how's it going? What's really happening? I'd like to know.
Good for them.
As I explained the pylon of funding cuts, including Medicaid, most folks I'd mentioned that to in philanthropy have been surprised. So I'm glad to be able to share that information. Others have either not been responsive to having a conversation, or the first answer is, we can't come anywhere close to replacing government dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say something about how nonprofit leaders face a moment like this. We all went through COVID. We learned that we needed to be prepared for anything. We needed to adapt, and we survived it. And those of us that adapted significantly, like my organization did, are thriving in ways we might not have been before. We do not expect philanthropy to make up the gap in government. We don't. We also don't think that if you give us money today, or you give us more money today, that we should rely on that and count on that for perpetuity either. That's not smart. We don't do that. We know philanthropy comes in certain moments with certain initiatives. There are partners for a while, and then they're not again. We expect that. So just know that we have, I think, an expectation that makes sense. The thing I would love is if philanthropy would look at this moment and say, one, there's an existential need, and I'm focused on children, but it's true for other issue areas as well. And two, how might we help nonprofits bridge the next 2 or 3 years when it's going to be really hard? See that additional spending as bridging money, not taking away from what you can give in 10 or 20 or 30 years, because that's what we're doing. We're maintaining our organization's strength to survive and digging deeper to adapt and meet the moment as it is. And I want partners that are alongside me for this moment in that way.
Elizabeth, thank you for the advice to philanthropy. Really appreciate your advice about inviting us to provide a bridge to the other side of this and to continue investing in the strength of organizations that are adapting and that are showing up for us every single day and showing up for our kids every single day. I think, relatedly, staying on this topic, Elizabeth, as you think down the road to the midterms, what impact might or might not the midterms have on your work and the young people you care about so dearly?
I'm hopeful that the midterms put some folks in Congress that prioritize children's well-being. And I don't care which side of the aisle they're on. That is what our country is responsible for. I feel a moral obligation, and I would like to see that represented in my government. I think that the impact for us is largely mood, optimism versus pessimism, belief, opportunity that comes from seeing things not getting broken, but rather holding steady and being a little more predictable. I wish I could say something more optimistic. I'm optimistic by nature. I'm finding this whole experience to be quite jarring to my temperament. And I'm also pragmatic. And I think if a turn of the weight in Congress and even maybe the Senate could ensure that children are no longer the punching bag of actions, that would be an improvement. And we serve kids no matter where they came from originally, no matter where their parents came from originally. They are kids on American soil. They are children. Like, let's do the right thing.
There have been aspects of this conversation that have been sobering, to say the least, but I want you to know, Elizabeth, that I found a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration in so much of what you shared today. Because I have the mic, I'm going to steal Glen's final question and ask you if you would share with us.
Please do.
Glen, this is what happens when you give me a mic, Glen.
That was a fake rule anyway, that it was my final question.
You never know. You never know what I might do. Elizabeth, I wonder if you would leave us with two things, actually. A fake rule that you would like to encourage either philanthropy or your nonprofit peers to break, and maybe leave us with some inspiration, with maybe some sports inspiration, maybe something having to do with women's basketball.
Yes. Okay. The fake rule I would encourage philanthropy to break, and break it with panache and enthusiasm, is the 5% as a ceiling. Let's go above that. Let's go above that for the spend down that Glen was describing. And then you can go back to it later, but right now let's do more. So that's the fake rule I would like to break. When I look back on 2025, the maybe second most important source of joy after my children and family was the Golden State Valkyries, the WNBA team in San Francisco. I am a season ticket holder, which if you had said 10 years ago I was going to be a season ticket holder of a WNBA team, I'd be like, I don't think so. The reason I love it is because that arena is full of joy. Everybody there is joyful and excited and happy, win or lose. And there's this sense of togetherness, that we belong in this community together just because we're wearing lavender, that is so powerful. And I realized the other night, that's what Playworks does on the playground. That's what we do with the kids. Same joy, same belonging. That's why I like the Valkyries so much. And they're also pretty good at it.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us, especially given all that you're managing right now. You're a national education leader under a lot of pressure. And at the same time, you just brought the joy of play straight into Break Fake Rules today. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. I'm leaving here like ready to go. So thank you so much for joining us on Break Fake Rules.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome.